The cafeteria aboard the xenobiology research station orbiting Helios Prime cleared within seconds. Dr. Marcus Chen looked up from his research tablet, confused by the sudden exodus of aliens from a dozen species, finding urgent reasons to be elsewhere. Then he saw her. A Kravathi woman stood alone in the suddenly empty space, her distinctive pointed ears drooping slightly, body language Marcus recognized from his studies as sadness or resignation. She was tall, with the predatory grace of her species, venomous spines along her arms retracted but visible, claws capable of tearing through armor currently wrapped around a meal tray. Her name was Vex'ara and everyone avoided her. Marcus had noticed the pattern over his weeks at the station. She moved through corridors like a ghost, always alone, always avoided. Colleagues took alternate routes when they saw her coming. Even other Kravathi, during their rare visits, kept their distance. He'd asked about it once. His supervisor had explained with visible discomfort. Her empathic projection is damaged. Malfunctioning. It constantly broadcasts predatory menace, makes others think she's about to attack, triggers instinctive terror. It's not intentional, she can't control it, but everyone responds to it anyway. Marcus had felt something when Vex'ara entered, like static at the edge of perception, vague unease. But it didn't trigger terror. His human neurology apparently didn't respond to Kravathi empathic broadcasts the way other species did. Now, absorbed in his data, he hadn't noticed the exodus. When he looked up, he found himself alone with this feared figure. Vex'ara realized someone remained. She froze, body language screaming expectation of rejection. "You should leave," she said, voice carrying Kravathi harmonics but rougher, strained. "Everyone does. It's safer. I can't control what I project." Marcus looked at her, really looked, not the quick glance of fear. "I'm Marcus. I work in xenobiology, and honestly I'm not feeling particularly threatened. Should I be?" His calm tone clearly shocked her. Silence stretched before she responded. "Most species experience intense fear in my presence. My empathic projection is damaged, malfunctioning. It broadcasts threat constantly, makes others believe I'm about to attack even when I'm just existing. Sounds exhausting. For me or for them? Both, I imagine." Marcus gestured to the empty cafeteria. "I'm going to finish my lunch. You're welcome to stay or go, whatever you prefer, but I'm not running if that's what you're waiting for." Vex'ara stared with those large predator eyes, a look that would send most fleeing. Then slowly, uncertainly, she took a seat. Not close, but not fleeing. They ate in silence. But it was the first time in months Vex'ara hadn't eaten completely alone. After that encounter, Marcus made a point of not avoiding Vex'ara. It started small, acknowledging her in hallways, holding elevator doors. Each interaction brief but accumulating into tentative acquaintance. Vex'ara confronted him one day in a quiet corridor. "Why don't you run? Everyone runs. Everyone fears me. Even my own kind treat me like I'm dangerous. So why don't you turn away in fear, human?" Genuine bewilderment alongside the perpetual threat her projection broadcast. Marcus considered his answer. "I think there's a difference between what you're projecting and what you actually are. Most species respond instinctively to empathic broadcasts. They can't separate signal from reality. But human empathy is different. We read emotions through body language, vocal tone, context. Your projection feels uncomfortable, like background noise, but it doesn't override what I'm actually observing. And what are you observing? Someone trying very hard to take up as little space as possible. Someone who apologizes for existing. Someone whose body language screams loneliness and exhaustion, not violence." He met her eyes. "Whatever your projection broadcasts, your actual behavior says you're harmless. I'm inclined to believe behavior over broadcast." Vex'ara's spines retracted fully, vulnerability among Kravathi. "You're the first person in 2 years to say that, to see me instead of what my broken empathy makes them think I am. That sounds incredibly isolating." "It is." Her voice cracked. "Do you know what it's like to watch people flee constantly? to know you're causing them genuine terror just by existing, to be avoided by your own species because you're a reminder that Kravathi biology can malfunction. Marcus didn't minimize it. No, I don't know what that's like, but I imagine it's hell. I'm sorry you're going through it. The simple acknowledgement without fear or pity seemed to break something in her. I came to this station hoping diversity of species would mean someone might not respond to the projection. But even species that shouldn't perceive it react with fear. Like my malfunction is so severe it overcomes biological limitations. Except humans, apparently. Except you, apparently. You're the only being in 2 years who hasn't run from me. Vulnerable in a way she clearly hadn't allowed herself to be in a long time. I don't know what to do with that. Maybe start with not eating alone, Marcus suggested. I usually have lunch around 1300. You're welcome to join me. No pressure, no expectation, just company if you want it. Over following weeks, they developed a routine. Lunch together most days, eventually extending to conversations during breaks, then collaborative work when Marcus realized Vex'ara's knowledge of Kravathi biology could enhance his research. She was brilliant, educated at the finest institutions before her empathic malfunction made social interaction impossible and forced her into isolation. Working together, they discovered comfortable rhythm. Marcus provided social interaction she'd been starved of. She provided insights transforming his understanding of predator species biology. But it wasn't just professional. They genuinely enjoyed each other's company, finding common ground in their shared status as outsiders. The turning point came when Marcus began researching Vex'ara's condition specifically, with her permission. She explained that empathic projection in Kravathi evolved as both communication and threat display. Normally, Kravathi can broadcast precise emotional information. But her projection was stuck permanently broadcasting, dangerous predator about to attack. The worst part, Vex'ara admitted during late-night research, is that it's made me question my own emotions. When I feel genuinely happy or calm, I'm broadcasting threat. There's no congruence between my actual state and what others perceive. It's like being trapped behind glass. I can see people, interact superficially, but genuine connection is impossible. Until now, Marcus said quietly. Until you, but what happens when you leave the station? What happens when I'm alone again? Marcus made a decision that was either compassionate or reckless. What if we tried to fix it? Your projection. There's got to be something, neurological intervention, empathic dampening technology. Vex'ara's expression cycled through hope and resignation. I've tried everything. Kravathi medical specialists, empathic therapists, experimental treatments. Nothing works. The malfunction is too deep. Fixing it would require rebuilding my empathic centers and the risk is too high. What about augmentation instead of repair? What if instead of fixing your projection, we gave you control over it? Marcus pulled up research on human neural interface technology. What if we adapted human neural interfaces, gave you conscious control over your projection the same way humans control voluntary muscles? Vex'ara looked at the data, scientific training warring with protection of not hoping. This has never been tested on Kravathi neurology. The risk is considerable, I know, but what's the alternative? Spending the rest of your life alone? Marcus met her eyes. I'm saying maybe there are options you haven't considered. Over following months, they worked obsessively, consulting specialists via long-range communication, building models of Kravathi empathic neurology, testing theoretical interventions. The work brought them closer, long hours together, shared frustration and small victories, intimacy of working toward a goal that mattered deeply to both. During this time, their relationship shifted from friendship toward something neither knew how to name. But there was genuine affection, trust, growing attachment transcending practical considerations. Then came the breakthrough. A xenoneurologist agreed to attempt an experimental procedure, implanting a modified human neural interface adapted for Kravathi biology, targeting Vex'ara's empathic centers. It's risky, the doctor explained. Success is uncertain. Complications could range from the procedure not working to catastrophic neural damage. Vex'ara looked at Marcus. What do you think? I think it's your choice. But I also think you've been surviving rather than living, and maybe a risk is worth taking if it means actually living again. She made her decision. Let's do it. The procedure was scheduled for 3 weeks later. During those weeks, Marcus and Vex'ara confronted the feelings that had developed between them. I'm afraid, Vex'ara admitted one evening in the observation lounge. Not of the procedure failing, but of it succeeding. Of finally being able to interact normally and realizing you only tolerated me because you couldn't feel what everyone else feels. Marcus reached for her hand, a gesture that took weeks for her to become comfortable with. I can't promise the future, but I can tell you that I've gotten to know you, the actual you, and I genuinely like who you are. Brilliant, wry, resilient, kind despite having every reason to be bitter. Those qualities don't change. And if the procedure fails, then I hope you'll let me stick around anyway, because isolation isn't something you should endure and you're not a burden. The procedure happened at a cutting-edge medical facility. Marcus waited through 6 hours of surgery. When doctors emerged, the news was cautiously positive. The implant integrated successfully. We won't know if she has actual control until she wakes and we run tests. Vex'ara woke 12 hours later. The first thing she did was access the implant's controls, and for the first time in over 2 years, she successfully modulated her empathic projection. The constant broadcast of threat faded to neutral, then shifted to something approaching calm. It works, Vex'ara said, voice filled with wonder. It actually works. Recovery involved learning to use the implant, something between voluntary and autonomic. But with practice, Vex'ara gained proficiency. The real test came when they returned to the research station. Vex'ara walked through corridors that used to empty at her approach, and this time people didn't flee. They noticed the change, realized something was different. Some approached cautiously, apologized for previous avoidance, welcomed her properly for the first time. But the most important test was with Marcus. One evening in the observation lounge, Vex'ara asked, "Now that I can control my projection, now that you're not the only one willing to be near me, do you still want to be?" Marcus considered carefully. I'm not going to pretend compassion wasn't part of it initially, but what developed went far beyond compassion. You challenged me intellectually, made me laugh, shared perspectives I'd never considered. You became one of my closest friends and then something more. He took her hand. The procedure didn't change who you are. It changed what others perceive. I'm staying because I want to, because you matter to me. Vex'ara's eyes welled with emotion. You saved me, not just by staying when everyone else ran, but by treating me like a person instead of a problem. You don't need to thank me. Just promise you won't disappear now that you have other options. I promise. Months later, when Marcus's contract ended, he accepted a permanent position at the station, citing productive collaboration with Vex'ara. It was true, but not complete truth. Complete truth was that he'd found something he didn't know he was looking for: connection, purpose, and someone who challenged him to see beyond surface perceptions. One day in the cafeteria where they first met, now filled with colleagues treating Vex'ara normally, a new researcher arrived, nervous, uncomfortable, struggling with social dynamics. Vex'ara watched, then looked at Marcus. "Should we invite them to sit with us?" Marcus smiled. "Yeah, I think we should. Everyone deserves someone who doesn't run away." They made space at their table, extending to another outsider the acceptance that started their own relationship. Because sometimes the greatest gift is simply not running, is seeing the person instead of the projection, is choosing connection despite fear. Everyone ran from Vex'ara. Everyone except the human who asked why he should fear someone whose actions showed only loneliness and desire for connection. And from that simple refusal to flee, they built something neither expected but both needed. Proof that acceptance transcends species barriers, that courage sometimes looks like just staying present, and that healing begins when someone finally chooses to see you clearly and not turn away.